He's the greatest quarterback ever.
I mean, him. You can make the argument that him and Mahomes are kind of better than Aaron Rodgers ever and Tom Brady. That they're going to revolutionize the position.
The Bills went an hour and 15 minutes without running a run play.
Jesus.
I was on Titans 9.5 last night, and I was just going, please keep running the ball, because it is not working. I would really appreciate if they keep handing to Devin Singletary, because taking the ball out of Josh Allen's hands, not smart.
No reason to. He has mastered the position. Like, you can see it. He is so he hasn't?
I mean,
he's so good, Woody.
I mean, he's not Tom Brady yet. I mean,
that's true.
You've made him a master of the position. Usually your measurement is he's got to win everything. And
he will.
As recently as 24 hours ago, you were saying, prove it to me, Bills.
Yeah.
That was 24 hours ago. Now they've outscored
they proved it. Yep.
The Rams and the Titans 72-17.
The Titans were the 1 seed in the AFC last year.
Well, this is Greg Cote's late today. I'm eager to hear his perspective as a renowned homer, because you saw what happened to us after 2 games. And Whittingham, I want to encourage you to stay strong, even though it's stupid for you to stay strong. That rooting for yourself to be right is to root against Joy, is to root against Miami, is to root against QAnon. It is so soaked in ego as to be dumb for you to go against.
Not rooting against QAnon, rooting against TuaNon. That's
yeah,
well, them also, but
$5. Yeah.
We're
not the only ones overreacting, because I heard Monday Night Countdown crew basically say when someone brought up Duper and Clayton, they were like, they weren't this explosive.
The Marx Brothers.
So we've Monday Night Football crew had our 2 receivers above Clayton and Duper already.
After 2 games, and the reason I'm encouraging Whittingham to
They're
stay
the 1 seed, Dan. The
stay
Dolphins.
strong is
They
because
are.
somebody's got to do it around here. Because after 2 games, we sound insane.
No.
On NFL Live, they were broadcasting live from Buffalo, and the Bills fans were loudly chanting "Tua sucks," and this made the Dolphins banter on Twitter really funny, because they were like, "Oh, we live rent free in their heads," and it was just so lacking in self-awareness, because anytime another quarterback bounces a ball at a receiver's feet, I see Tua fans retweeting it onto my timeline. Like, Josh Allen isn't perfect all the time.
Oh, I saw it last night. Josh Allen threw one pass into the flat that landed at the feet of a receiver. I see, there's not everyone's perfect.
The accusation that the Dolphins are living rent-free in other people's heads, when anytime Chris Sims sneezes, I find out about it, or Emmanuel Acho puts out another stand-up video where he talks to you like you're stupid, is out there. I see it on my timeline.
Josh Allen doesn't like making that throws to the flats. He just likes throwing 40, 50, 60, 70 yards. He doesn't like that throw. He's not accurate
One
there.
of the things that he does, and this is going to be held against Tua, that Herbert and Josh Allen can do this. When Josh Allen rolls to his left and just slings his arm and it goes 30 yards downfield accurate laser, you're like, good God, that's the strongest arm I've ever seen.
And it's like Jake Kumaro sometimes. He had Stephon Diggs, who had a brilliant game, and that was a hell of an acquisition for them, because you could also, there's a line of demarcation when everybody became wrong on Josh Allen, and it might time up with the acquisition of Stephon Diggs. But he's making other receivers really good. The Gabe Davis took a while in development, had a really good couple of weeks before
he was out
his
last
ankle.
night. Yeah,
and they just slot in Jake Kumaro, and it doesn't really matter. That's a sign of a great quarterback. They can make people that have just been hanging around in the league really good sometimes with their output.
It's when skill players and coaching give a quarterback margin for error. And I think that's what they've afforded Josh Allen, is they've given him the room to grow in a system to where maybe his imperfect accuracy at times in his career is sort of fixed because wide receivers are wide open. Stephon Diggs has the time in the room to adjust, even though now he's being hit in stride because Josh Allen has kind of miraculously improved from an accuracy standpoint. We don't see that happen very often at NFL level.
And Chris, Brian Daboll's obviously being crowned right now. He's 2-0 in the New York market. He has a big Monday nighter against Dallas, and you have in his resume what he did with Josh Allen. But don't overlook what Ken Dorsey has done in his career. The best Cam Newton has ever looked was with Ken Dorsey. The best Josh Allen who has ever looked is with Ken Dorsey on the staff. And these are quarterbacks that a lot of people had questions about.
It's so terrifying how dominant he is outside of the pocket and in play action. Like, you just cannot beat him if you let him outside of the pocket. It's just dangerous. Amina was saying how in week 1 he was like literally like 5 for 5 out of the pocket, 6 for 6 or something from play action, like 11 for 11. Like, it's insane. If you want any chance at stopping the Bills, you have to keep him in the pocket.
For all the time we talk about football and evaluation, I don't know if you guys are as interested in this part of it as I am. As I'm watching Jalen Hurts and Tua, two quarterbacks who would have never been allowed to exist 5 years ago at their size and height because they weren't big enough and they ran too much.
On the same college team.
But as the measurements change, right? And you get to a point where the Kyler Murrays and the 6-footers are out there, and you're like, okay, Bill Polian doesn't think Lamar Jackson's a quarterback, but what we're going to do here is just try and evaluate quarterbacks who look different than any quarterbacks we've ever seen. And here's this centaur who represents athletically the best of all of them because he can do all of the things and has the biggest arm you've ever seen.
And yet when he entered the draft in a draft that is more scrutinized and analyzed than any other draft in professional sports, no one really told us he could do that running the ball. He was
had
alleged,
no idea.
He was alleged to
Zero.
be a statue.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he has okay straight line speed, but he didn't flash that. It was a surprise.
They told us Daniel Jones could do it, and none of us were watching him at Duke.
No, I knew Daniel Jones could do it because he did it against Miami. I watched Josh Allen. Did not know he could do that.
You watched him at Wyoming?
Yeah, because he had all this hype. Remember, I was a Browns
gambling
fan.
again.
No, remember, I was a Browns fan. I was scouting
The last
quarterbacks
time he
a year
was
out.
gambling. Yeah.
You were watching Wyoming football when he was completing 50% of his passes at Wyoming and had a skill set.
Chickens.
What are you talking? What? I don't watch Wyoming football? Huh? I watch everything.
I remember when he was a prospect, it's like, I'm going to watch this just to see what it was about. And it actually, to your point, because in some ways, him and Herbert represent the scouts' representation of physical tools, size and speed and athleticism and big arm, whereas you talk about Baker and Kyler as kind of the representation of kind of a newer age thinking about the quarterback position. It doesn't have to be as stereotypical as standard. And yet these scouting sort of wonders, big quarterbacks with big arms, are also dominating. Just goes to show we know nothing about this position.
I have never seen Mike so outraged about anything than the accusation that he's not watching Wyoming football.
I had a football season in which I became the king of Colgate football Twitter. I don't watch Wyoming? That's FBS. That one's easy.
Greg Cote has arrived. He is winded and late. The Tuesday experience has begun. I am very happy because he's here, and it's rare that you get this kind of get on a Tua Tuesday, where I'd be totally fine doing the entire show just analyzing the fandoms of everyone in this room, because there are a lot of people in precarious positions right now. Billy's out there exposed. He never does this. At 2-0, he's bought a Tua jersey. Chris Cote was red-faced.
Shipped already.
And snorting.
Nice.
He got the Dolphin football gene hand-me-down from his father. It's his mother. That family has cared about Dolphin football. They raised those kids on losing Dolphin football. And so I'm grateful that on this Tuesday, we've got the biggest of all the Miami homers in the history of this journalistic town.
That's correct.
Here to celebrate that he predicted a week ago that the Dolphins were going to win the Super Bowl. Are you screaming and yelling in the fourth quarter and cheering and pretending to hide it?
Honestly, you remember your journalism days. You're writing on deadline, and I was getting ready to write that they were losing 38-35, and I was going to write that it's an exhilarating loss, and if there isn't such a thing as an exhilarating loss, there ought to be, because this was one, and then they come back and win. I had the Dolphins number 5 overall in my team rankings this year, and people on my own staff were laughing at me. I've been leading the Tua bandwagon since the beginning.
Yep.
By the way, the admission to that bandwagon has now doubled.
Can you slow down? You came in winded.
He's very excited.
I'm very excited.
He's right on everything.
It's all adrenaline. It's all adrenaline.
He's right on everything for one quarter. This is why I'm asking Whittingham to stay strong. The tone around this has changed. You guys were scared for 7 quarters, and then one quarter, everything's changed. And it's Super Bowl, and it lacks perspective in a way that's a bit alarming.
How were you writing that they were going to lose 38-35? Like at that moment, you thought they weren't going to come back with the ball?
Well,
how?
That's what you have to do. Is you're writing based on the score when it's that late and that
You
close.
start writing that column.
You
is what
start writing that
right.
column. You have to. Otherwise, it's going to take forever. So that was in my mind, and then they score.
Greg, I need to calm you down. You've come in
really-
super
Now, this is
hot.
what Tua has done to this town, Dan.
You have come in. It's
People
fine.
all over town are talking like Greg.
I know.
Greg, I will give you the floor to say whatever you homerifically like about Tua. You came up the stairs running. Why you'd be late today, I don't understand, because you seem really eager to be here.
No, I am.
I was
Always
doing the moral victory stuff too at 38-35. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not saying I was predicting them to
Yeah.
lose or win, but I was doing the thing of, hey, even if we lose this game, this team showed us something today.
By the way, yesterday was the deadline, and we didn't get certain answers from certain people as to whether they were 2 in or 2 out.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
So, Chris, you were writing a mental column in your head?
I was doing the show for my friends. I was just like, guys, it's okay. This was a good
He's going to
fight
replace
here.
me at the Herald. I haven't told him yet.
how did the conversation go with you and your dad? Was your dad also up at 4 a.m. pacing the house, happy that he thought for a quarter he's got an offense?
He was very excited. He was struggling with his medication on Sunday, so he was wheezing and coughing a lot. So, well, I mean, I'm just saying it was part of my Sunday
but does
experience.
he struggle with his medication because he just doesn't take it? Because that's what happens a lot on
He
Tuesdays
didn't
here.
reorder it. He needs to
So
be
yes
better
is the
about.
answer
Is
to
he
my
good at
question.
chewing it, or like do you have to hide it in peanut butter?
I put it up his butt.
I'm all meted up now. I went to my main man yesterday. I'm good.
Your main man?
My main man. I
Go to
got,
the back alley?
I got 4 doctors, and there's one that
Richard
I
Rubel?
would.
He's got to connect.
There's one of my 4 doctors who I would adopt. I would pay for his whole lifestyle and keep him in my house.
Greg Cote
Personal doctor.
is wearing a shirt
I
with.
apologize. Richard Rubel was a rainmaker.
That's right. Yes.
You can do local ads. I'm here to do all the local ads that you grew
Great
up
mortgage
with.
rates.
All of them through radio, through television, through Saturday infomercials.
Thank you, Roy. It was Anthony Caliendo who was the main man.
Caliendo. That's
main
right.
man,
He's
Anthony
the main
Caliendo.
man.
He always had rates like 1% less than everyone else.
Staple Singer's got a great song called "My Main Man." Oh my gosh,
We were just talking about that the other day.
the Staple Singers.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
Greg Cote is wearing a shirt with his own face on it.
Yeah, we call that the floating head shirt. It's available at the Greg Cote, GregCoteShow.com merch store.
What is the website?
There's a Greg Cote
Yeah.
show.com.
There's the GregCoteShow.com. There's a website, and within that, there's a merch store. Click on shop, and shop to your heart's content. It's almost the holidays.
You've cut off your
Right.
head, though, in a floating head.
Yeah, it's
No,
not a great photo
No, we like
shop.
that. No, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
We like that.
Yeah, we do like that. It's exactly the way we wanted it, other than the fact that there's no show logo on the entire shirt,
Greg,
front or back.
Please, the floor is yours. And please, calm down, breathe easy.
I know.
So that you don't run out of breath. No one's going to cut you off.
Right.
Great sights.
Say whatever it is that you like
Okay.
about the Miami Dolphins. Have at it.
Okay. To your point, and you know they're about to play the best team in football last night or next week, the best team in football that looked like it last night. So don't get me wrong, they very well could lose to Buffalo
By 1,000 points.
by 1,000 points. When I wrote that Sunday was a quote unquote career redefining performance by Tua, and the first comment to that tweet was, "So you're going to call for his benching next week?" So I am aware that we go, particularly with Tua, with just about any quarterback but the Allens. We go week by week.
Greg,
I
I'm
get
not
that.
kidding you when I tell you the thing around Tua is the strangest thing I have seen in my history covering sports in this market with an athlete, where everyone's confused and the passion is on such the extremes where everybody wants to be right on this guy's either awful or he's great or he's Garoppolo.
Stranger than Pokey Reese.
Then that he disappeared.
He was here one day and gone the next.
Yeah.
I mean, we've never found
that
him.
happened to Alfred Oglesby
Right.
too, didn't
That's
it?
true. He did,
And
yes.
he made up a story
Right.
about being abducted.
He did. Good story, though.
They
If you're
found
going to
him.
lie, man, do it creatively.
Never found Pokey Reese.
By the way, Dan, thank you for
Where
not
is he?
cutting me off as I was just beginning to talk about Tua and the Dolphins.
he made that promise, too.
He has entered the league under more strange circumstances than anybody because he's not Burrow, he's not Herbert. They wanted Deshaun Watson. They wanted Tom Brady, L-Jack. They wanted everybody but Tua. Even his own team disrespected him. And now, for the first time, I think, for the first time in 2+ years, we're coming around to the idea that, wow, granted, it takes 2 great receivers, as it did for Marino for much of his career, but we're coming around to the idea that Tua is good enough and he can be really good. Why? Because it starts with accuracy. Okay? Tyreek Hill wasn't lying when he said that Tua throws a more accurate ball than Mahomes. Mike McDaniel wasn't lying on your show when he said he throws the most catchable ball he's seen. If your starting point is accuracy, you have a pretty good foundation.
One quarter, though.
It's not the
He's
first
always
time.
been accurate.
It's not the first time.
that's not fair.
No. What my point is that we are now making this so small on an analysis sample size that legitimately it's gone from I hope he's chaos factor in fantasy. I hope to he's given you one quarter. It's here. And do you trust that? Because I want to be excited that way too. I'd like to just sit there and cheer and wave pom-poms too. But the 7 quarters before that didn't look like that quarter.
Right.
We will not abide by this.
This is disrespectful.
They also didn't need to look like that quarter because he's never been playing down by 21
It was
points.
a half.
It was 2 quarters.
He's 4-0 against Belichick.
Okay. I think I speak from a unique perspective in this market in that I am a journalist, an impartial journalist, but I also grew up a Dolphin fan. So
Impartial
I have to
journalist.
weigh both sides.
Love that.
Yes, I root for fairness in life as in journalism. But no, you don't trust Tua right now because of one quarter, as you say, but you allow yourself to hope. Okay? I think before Sunday, the whole narrative around Tua is he's just, I doubt if he's good enough. He's just, even at his best, he's just not that. Is he going to be great? Blah, blah, blah. Now I think you've seen a ceiling. I think you've seen how good he can be, particularly with the infusion of Tyreek Hill. And so that's all. You can't trust yet. Tua's always going to be day by day and play by play. But you're allowed to hope now and not be ridiculed. You're allowed to see what you saw Sunday and think the best.
You're allowed to believe that maybe he's not the Jimmy Garoppolo, even Kirk Cousins. We saw another bit of evidence that
or Tannehill.
Right,
As you're watching quarterbacks,
Tannehill might be done.
But Stugotz, the way the analysis changes, right? Because Doug Peterson was able to win a Super Bowl with that Eagles team and a backup quarterback, Nick Foles, who played the game the way Jalen Hurts does not.
Right.
And now you watch the Eagles and you're like, well, wait a minute. Jalen and Tua are in the same situation. They've got this year to decide. And if I overwhelm you with talent on offense and get value from the quarterback position, the whole evaluation of the position changes over the last 5 years.
But with Tua, you will also allow for the fact that this will be up and down. And unless he proves over a period of 8 to 10 games, not just of winning, because he's won games. He has a very good record. It's about good performance and drive in, drive out, moving the ball down the field, making 3rd and 8 not seem like this massive ordeal, which to me, until Sunday, it has been. I didn't trust Tua on 3rd and long, and he made 2nd and longs and 3rd and longs into fairly easy conversions. Until he does that on a regular basis, I am still not going to trust.
He's not throwing 6 touchdowns on a regular basis. He can play well on a regular basis,
but it's also,
though.
You guys are just constantly moving the goalposts with him just to be right. It's like I've never seen him do it. It's like, well, he did well, do it again. It's like He's had 2 games. He's won them both. He had a historic game for the franchise the last time he played. And it's like, well, do it again.
Whitty, you love the Dolphins. You have a monster game this Sunday at Dolphin Stadium. Bills, Dolphins, both teams 2-0.
You get 2 games in 5 days because they're at the Bengals on a Thursday night.
Well, the reason you have that game is because of what Tua did against the Ravens. And now you're telling him to do it again.
I am.
Do it against Josh Allen.
I am.
I'm so proud of you.
I mean, you look at the top quarterbacks in the league; they do it every week.
How about do it against the Bengals? You know,
he can take away.
Can't do it against the Bills.
I'm just saying,
I'm
saying, let's not panic if he doesn't look amazing against the best team in the NFL. I think we don't. I'm okay if we lose to the Bills and then if we're 3-1 after this schedule to start the season. I am going. We could lose. We get our asses kicked.
Wow,
on Sunday.
You're on the Dolphins.
I will be skipping out of that.
The expectation
2-1.
Before the season, the expectation was through the first 4 games, they'd maybe be 1-3 or 2-2.
If they're 2-1 walking out of that game, I'm going to be skipping out of there.
This is how crazy it's gotten to 2-0 with Tua. I've never heard you and the Dolphins be a we. I've never heard you be a proud couple.
I had a brief time with the Chargers, but outside of that, it's been a we.
Right. Well, Billy, what do you think that I want to be right about?
You guys just are unrealistic. It's like you want him to be 16-0, and he's not going to be that. And everybody knows that he's not the best quarterback in the league. But he's good enough, and he proved that he was good enough this week. And it's like, well, he has to be 3-0. He has to beat the Bills, and then he has to be 4-0. And it's like, what team do you expect to be 3-0, 4-0, and have a perfect season?
You guys made fun of me on God Bless Football because I said I'd rather have Justin Herbert in defeats than Tua in wins.
Yeah,
and it's because it's about level of performance. Justin Herbert delivers a consistent level of performance
to win the game.
What you said was you'd rather have the Marino years than a year of Dilfer and winning a Super Bowl, which is ludicrous.
Yeah. Right. But Tua for a half displayed that he can be better than Dilfer. I don't think wanting to see it again is out of line. I understand what Billy is saying, but on the balance of the season, 6 of his 8 quarters have been meh, right? We after week 1, we were not impressed. We were doing the same exact Tua show we've always done. At halftime, I saw a lot of poisonous Tua rhetoric.
For sure.
And then one of the best halves of football we've ever seen. It's not unreasonable to say, okay, let's start putting together some consistent effort so we can finally get away from having the discussion of what is this guy?
Tua could win the Super Bowl and you guys still wouldn't give him credit for anything.
No
You'd
doubt.
say I'd rather have Justin Herbert do it consistently when he hasn't done shit.
Well,
that's just the way that it is with this guy. People don't he's Tebow. He's Tim Tebow, but more skilled. People don't want to see him succeed. They want to see him fail so they can say, I told you so.
I think that's harsh.
Yesterday they were chanting Tua sucked in Buffalo. When it had nothing to do with Tua. It's Monday Night Football. What was that?
I completely
They're
agree.
nervous.
You don't think people want to see Tua fail?
I thought you were leveling the accusation at me. No, I agree that he has become this sort of lightning rod for conversation nationally. It's kind of, to Dan's point, astounding what's happened in this city and in others, that Tua has become this. He's another one of these first take single word kind of figures. You mentioned Tebow. There's so many throughout the years that they've had, LeBron being another, where it's just you say one word and it elicits a reaction.
I don't think he's in that category.
No, not yet.
Tebow,
Josh Allen,
LeBron, Tua. I think we are in the prisoner of the Miami market right now.
No, it's not greatness. You could also do it with Baker and Dak Prescott's contract. I think that there are national topics that there is general fatigue on, and when the Bills fans are saying Tua sucks, it's not just because it's a division rival, it's because they're sick of hearing about him. I hear more about Tua on most weeks than I hear about Josh Allen. It's just because he's such a captivating topic, and there's starting to be fatigue around him.
Mina Kimes came on this show and said, I tiptoe around criticizing Tua because of how crazy the criticism and how crazy the reaction is. I don't think she would say that about too many NFL quarterbacks, and I'm afraid of angering the fan base that he plays for because they're rabid and insane.
Well, he's polarizing.
Good.
You're either in his camp or you're not, and you're willing to fight on either side. His 2 interceptions on Sunday were awful. They weren't tip balls. They were both his fault.
That's not true. The first one was a tipped ball that was intercepted.
Yes.
It was a bad decision he made. He threw into a place he shouldn't have.
But it was a tip ball.
But he threw into
tip
double
balls are
coverage.
often the quarterback's fault too.
Yeah, I mean, and this one clearly was. The point is, both of those interceptions were clearly his fault. So you're ready to say, here goes Tua again. Damn him. And then he throws 6 touchdown passes. I think what Sunday did for him, in addition to allow fans to hope a little bit about him, is it gave him a little benefit of doubt. I think if he throws an interception early in the first quarter against Buffalo, you're less inclined to go, all right, here goes Tua again. You're thinking, well, no, we came back for teams have been 0-771 in the NFL before they came back from a 21-point fourth quarter lead. That is what Tua can do.
When did we start doing this by quarter? He's had 2 good games. They're 2-0. He leads the NFL in every single stat. 2 good games, Chris. Yes.
2 good games. They had 13 offensive points in week 1.
Okay, they won the game.
No, but they're
2-0.
You cannot be so reductive and say that Tua
I can be that reductive. I am that reductive. Whatever that means.
But you're not doing that every single time.
Sounds like an insult.
You're not doing it with all these great if Mahomes wins a game where he you're not doing this every time.
How did Aaron Rodgers look? How did Aaron Rodgers look so far?
No, but guys, here's the major difference, okay? This is what you want Tua to be, and he's not that because very few guys are, okay? Patrick Mahomes doesn't need Tyreek Hill. Tua needs Tyreek Hill to be good. Patrick Mahomes doesn't need him. Like, he's shown that already. He doesn't need them.
But who cares?
Aaron Rodgers is good with any wide receivers.
Who cares?
Tua needs these.
But what's the
I don't care.
But what's the point? Are you trying to win the game,
No,
or are you trying to just
Billy.
get meaningless stats and compile?
I'm with you. That's
you guys
the difference.
not want the Dolphins to win these games? Would
He's
you rather
good.
them lose?
He's good, not great. He's good enough to win a Super Bowl.
I wouldn't say they're meaningless stats and compiling of what Mahomes is doing, but I think that there's a lot that goes into this season because of the Stephen Ross tampering thing. The Dolphins did right by Tua. They gave him weapons, and they've changed how he looks. He had his greatest game in his career, specifically because the weapons they provided him on the outside, and that's what this year was all about, to finally get an answer to all of our questions. And now the stakes have been ratcheted up because they lost draft capital with the tampering stuff. So they kind of need Tua to be good now.
And don't forget Terran Armstead, the tackle, who's made a big difference. Tua was only sacked once Sunday. He was not under a hell of a lot of pressure.
We can't forget him.
No.
Okay.
Well,
I won't let you.
We have now become that show after 2 games, and we are doing this quarter to quarter, and we're going to annoy the holy hell out of the audience by doing this much Tua.
Well, you guys just want to be right. That's the thing.
Well,
You'd rather be right than happy.
You keep doing this to me where you say you guys, and my shameful admission is I've largely been a coward on Tua, saying can't evaluate it, don't know, don't understand. And you've made me one of the loudest critics. When I heard the parade of gas bags that got thrown out there yesterday, I haven't said anything like those things. You know why? Because I don't understand whether he's going to be good or not. Because I've watched 2 seasons with that offensive line and him injured, and I'm like, okay, is he? I don't know, but it's not popular or easy to say I don't know. It's not worth anything to say I don't know. I've been saying I don't know for 2 years, the same way I was saying I don't know on Ryan Tannehill for 7 of them. I don't know how to do the analysis, and now we're doing it quarter to quarter. What is the criticism you'd like to stick to me? Because I'll be that public face on ripping Tua if there are sounds that by saying you guys are saying they're going to win the Super Bowl after 2 games, we sound like the show we make fun of.
Billy, I sort of want to say that for me, the criticism that I've levied against Tua is not because I am like I want to be right or I come on here and for me being right. It's actually a manifestation of my emotion as a fan. I want to live the charmed existence that the Buffalo Bills fans live, where every year I don't have to ask what's going on with my quarterback.
Buffalo Bills don't have a charmed existence.
Well, I'm saying right now they do because they enter the year knowing that they're a Super Bowl contender.
There's 5 quarterbacks in the world
I know,
like that.
I want one of them.
Well, but
is that so much to ask? I don't want to have
didn't win you anything.
I don't want to have the Ryan Tannehill argument for 7 years. Kirk Cousins is entering year 5 as the Vikings starter, and every year they go into the do we have something at quarterback? I don't want to live that life anymore.
It's probably an outlier, but you just cited a fan base that you're jealous of that spent 2 years asking whether or not that quarterback is the guy.
For sure.
Correct.
100%. Good comment by Mike.
And now they're plus 275 to win the
Good
AFC.
comment.
Do you want to do this?
I love you doing a running commentary.
I love you just doing the entire show.
I
you
will.
saying, like, giving us
Good
points
point.
for whether or not there was a good comment.
Here's one more. Dear Tua, all you have to do to make Chris Whittingham happy is throw 6 touchdowns each week. That's all. And then he's going to be happy. Come on.
It's not 6 touchdowns
Well, there
every
were also
week.
those 2 bad passes that he could have done without, Greg.
Well, this is the other thing, Billy. What,
Good point, Greg.
What I do love,
Thank you.
good point, Billy. What I can't help but notice in all of this is Greg Cote and the rest of us with what is happening on the insanity of that field. Last night you saw in one of the games they do the tempered tempo of ambulance on the field. We've got to low the energy, everybody for 2 or 3 minutes, and then action resumes again, and you forget that somebody after the applause is being carted off to the hospital. As we're in the middle of that, you can't help but be inspired by Greg Cote or the rest of us coming over and being like, with all that insanity around Tua, you threw 2 bad ones. Of the 50, 2 of them were really bad decisions. The standard is now in such a high place that I ask you to consider this, the deep ball. You know how hard it is to complete that 60 yards downfield when a guy's not that open? Like, you got to be pretty accurate on the deep ball. It's not the easiest of passes to make, even if you do have the arm strength. And if Josh Allen overthrew somebody in the end zone yesterday, and I'm like, you got to make that throw.
Right. Threw it too far. It's easy for him to make those throws.
With the 2 throws.
No, I'm saying it's hard
I know,
40 yards downfield to be so precise that your guy running 1 yard in front of another incredibly fast guy. And we're right there to tell you, the standard is so high now with all of these guys.
Got 9 guys flying in his face.
You threw 2 bad ones.
I mean, well, you want to trust him to not throw the 2 bad ones in crucial spots. Look at Thursday Night Football. Justin Herbert threw 1 bad one. They lost the game because of it.
Yeah.
And you want Tua to at least, I think, if I can speak for Whitty, I think Whitty just wants to trust that when this team loses, if they lose, Tua's not going to be the reason for it. And I don't think he's got that level of trust yet that he still sees the deficiencies, and he hasn't proven it enough on the field for him to trust Tua in that way.
But he can be the reason for the loss. Every quarterback is the reason for losses in certain times. What is Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs? Always the reason for the losses when they lose.
Well, not always, but I get your point.
Sometimes he is though, Mike.
No, yeah, you can't be like it's an astounding mark that Tua might have to hit for Chris Whittingham to move off of his position and admit he was wrong.
Be Patrick Mahomes. Seems like the standard.
But is that not what he was in college, though? Like, that is sort of what I'm judging him against, how good he was in college.
He replaced Jalen Hurts.
The greatest college player ever.
But I mean, he went about it differently. Like, Tua would throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns.
But Whitty, you can win with Matthew Stafford. He's not those guys. They won a Super Bowl last year.
He wants to see the guy that they yanked Jalen Hurts for and just lit up a Georgia secondary.
Did see that. Yesterday.
You did?
Yeah.
Or
right.
Sunday.
Yeah, you did see
but
it.
But I thought he would be that every week. And I know it's harsh as well. He's coming off a major hip injury that might have changed him forever. We don't know if he'll ever be physically the same. But that in my football life, I'd like to have it once.
But in college, he also played all-star team on an all-star team every single week against teams that were not the same.
Correct, and now
he didn't have the pieces.
And he's got a much better context now because they have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Mike Gesicki, who was underrated on Sunday. That touchdown catch that he had was incredible. And so the skill position talent is absolutely a huge part of it. But I thought that Tua was a generational quarterback. There was a whole thing where Dolphins fans got angry that they were winning games because they wanted the number 1 overall pick because that's what it took to get Tua because he was that special of a prospect.
Yeah, tank for Tua.
And that guy that I sort of pinned my hopes to is not proven to be that so far.
Just to take the next steps
Except
in the
for
conversation. Because Sunday, the Miami Dolphins play in the biggest game of the NFL week, I think, against Buffalo.
Yeah, game of the week.
If Tua puts up another consistent effort and outplays Josh Allen in a Dolphins victory, then we can stop having the discussion, what is Tua, and move on to being like super excited about this team.
Chris Cote, I think, is expecting to be slaughtered. Stugotz came in today. I think we got it at the beginning of the show. He's like, you know what today is, right, Dan? The Bills get to sit back in their chair, Bills fans, and their belly gets to go out a little further than Dolphin fans, and they can be a little more satisfied.
Stick it out, Buffalo.
While looking at the Dolphins and saying, prove it to me. He said last night was a prove it to me game for some reason for the Bills and Josh Allen, and now everyone in the league is on notice. They don't have to prove anything anymore. We know if they're healthy, they're going to be really hard to stop by anybody.
They're done proving, Dan. You're right.
What's the early line? I'm guessing
5.5.
Is it only?
Yeah, 5.5.
Wow.
I think that's right on the money.
I'm taking the Dolphins.
The thing about Josh Allen is he's kind of like bizarro
Money
Tom
line.
Brady in that he plays really well in Miami.
Right.
Like he looks forward to this trip.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, take the Bills.
I would love to go to that game as an NFL fan. That's a game of the week.
You know what's interesting about what we've seen from Tua this season is that Mike McDaniel comes over as the run game whisperer. We haven't seen a great Dolphins running game yet, so we haven't seen Tua operating out of a balanced offense where the defense actually fears the run. We also haven't seen much RPO out of Tua, where Tua's a very mobile quarterback. I'm not saying he's Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts, but he's a very mobile quarterback, and the Dolphins' offense so far hasn't gotten that from him yet, which it could.
Late arriving Roy Bellamy. Have any Dolphin opinions? I've gotten every fandom here. Billy is, I love Billy is now angry and saying.
I'm not angry. I'm chill.
Okay.
Me and Tua hanging out with lays around our necks.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Just fighting off the haters.
Fair enough. You are looking for haters, though. You are in.
I'm not looking for haters. They're finding me, baby. I'm just here. Okay, I'm minding my P's and Q's over here on Tua Island, and we just have people coming after us left and right.
I've got to say that I think that one of the greatest things in sports is when you get to be the fan searching out the haters. When you get one Monday or Tuesday, you get to go find the haters. It's a good position you've carved out for yourself, Billy. Chris Cote is in the position.
I'm taking names, by the way. Booger McFarland, Keyshawn Johnson.
Receipts,
You're one
exactly.
of them. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm saying that are criticizing Tua.
Right, but you have been getting blown out this week.
Well, I have perspective. I don't think they're going to go 16-0. I think you can leave that game and you're still good, man.
Are you happy 38-35 Bills? You have to be ecstatic with that, right?
Dude,
Whittingham wants that game.
I'm going to be.
You'd rather have that game than win 13-10.
I will be skipping out of that stadium regardless of the score. 2-1.
That's a good question. Put it on the poll, Guillermo, at LeBatard Show. If you're a Dolphin fan, would you rather lose 48-45 against the Bills or beat them 9-6?
Have we ever seen anything like this so early in the betting markets to have a team plus 275 to win the conference, but also like plus 400 in some books to be the Super Bowl champion? Josh Allen's a heavy favorite to win the NFL MVP. They just dominated the reigning Super Bowl champs at home. They just dominated the last year's 1 seed in the AFC.
Crazy.
And now they march into Miami, a 5-point road favorite. If the Dolphins hang in this game, I do think that you can take a moral victory.
Billy, though,
I'm not buying the Bills. I've been telling you this whole time. Don't buy the Bills.
You accuse me of being entrenched. That's being entrenched.
Unless the Bills win the Super Bowl.
In the first 2 weeks.
Unless the Bills win the Super Bowl, I'm going to be right. You do it in these games that don't matter.
Yeah.
I have a 1 in 32 chance of being wrong.
They fizzled in the playoffs.
I think Billy's right. It is Super Bowl or bust for Buffalo. That is a terrifying spot to be in if you're a Buffalo Bills fan. Your expectations as a Buffalo Bills fan cannot be Super Bowl or bust historically.
It's exciting as we've got in front of us, and Cody and Stugotz, both of them on the record as predicting already that the Dolphins will win the Super Bowl. So it might not be Super Bowl or bust, but that's what's happening next to me. I've told you what's happening with Billy. You hear what's happening with Whittingham. Mike Ryan, who is sitting out all fandom, but might want to take up the Dolphins, might want to, as an NFL fan, sniff around the Dolphins to see if they want your free agency fandom. Chris Cote is in a place where I think most Dolphin fans are. Snorting the cocaine of Sunday, scared of the Bills, still have 2 decades of history to remind you.
He's starting to come down a little bit.
That you are a loser, but you want to hope.
I just want to enjoy this feeling that I have right now. Can you guys just let me enjoy this week?
Because the Bills are here to take it away from you. That's what the fear, this is what feels good and bad about what's going to be on. Man, you're headed for either Monday. Trust me when I tell you, if they lose 41-13, it's going to go right back on Monday to not celebrating Josh Allen on television, but being about Tua wasn't good for those 4 quarters. He's going to have bought himself nothing because we're doing this quarter to quarter. But Roy, you've been a lifelong fan of this team as well, correct?
That's right.
Where are you? You are a professional stoic. You are a person. We never see your allegiances for anybody except the Panthers. And when we talk to you about the Panther playoff run, your quotes are like, they've got to get business done tonight. It's not very emotional.
I never said those words ever.
That's a good quote.
Usually about the forecheck.
It's a good quote.
Yeah.
Gotta get the forecheck going.
It was excellent last year, that forecheck.
Where is Roy Bellamy as a lifelong Dolphin fan on everything that's happening with the stupid fandom in this room?
On the fence as usual. As usual.
Yesterday was a deadline.
Uncomfortable place to be.
Yeah. Man, listen, I'm very happy for the Dolphins after what happened yesterday, even though I didn't see the game. But 2 days ago, yes, it was on Sunday because I was at the movies.
Oh my God!
Oh, the movie!
What were you seeing?
A nice Sunday
I saw
afternoon.
The Woman King.
Wow,
The Woman King with Viola Davis. Excellent movie. I saw it in 40X. In the 40X movie theater, which is where the seats move, and then they got the special effects with the water spritzing, like pretending like it's like blood splatter. It was a lot of fun watching that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
you had blood splattering
Take
on
your
you?
daughter
That
to
was
see that.
fun?
Yeah, it was water representing blood
parent
splatter.
are you?
Yeah. No, Claire was not there.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Roy.
Nonetheless, I'm very happy for the Dolphins win.
No. If you don't watch the game, your opinion is invalid.
That's
you don't
right.
care. You don't even care.
Day.
I set you up as a Dolphin fan, and you're like, didn't watch the game.
Right.
I was getting water splattered at the
Well,
movie
listen,
theater.
I heard the game. I heard the first half on the radio driving to the movie theater.
What is this?
Yes, exactly.
Woman
When I
King
left the
review.
theater, they won.
I gotta tell you, as an NFL fan, I am offended at your attempt to have life balance. Do not do that on an NFL Sunday.
We're all have families
Do
here.
not
I
Sunday's
do that
right, man.
ever as an NFL
You're doing
Sunday.
it way wrong. My wife hates me right now because I skipped a family outing on Sunday. That's how you do it, Roy. What are you doing? I mean, jeez.
Yep, Sunday is your day, Roy.
Since when?
Thank you.
Since when?
Since when is any day my day? Actually, come to think of it.
Is it true your father has accused you?
Don't put that on the air.
It's already on the air. What do you mean don't put it on the air?
Said it into a microphone.
Oh, my God. I thought we were off air.
Chris Cote, your father has betrayed you and has now told people that you were working, quote unquote, working at Flanagan's, which is...
That's an absurd lie. I was at Twin Peaks. And I am working there. I don't have the NFL ticket, okay? If I want to watch every game at once, honey.
There you go. That's where I got to go. Yeah.
Working the chicken wings is what you were working?
Nah, I had a chicken sandwich.
Fried?
Of course.
Yeah, good. Bad question.
Can you guys answer for me the following? Heavy.com is reporting that an anonymous NBA executive has said that the Heat were better with Gabe Vincent on the floor last year than with Kyle Lowry.
During the regular season or all of it, including that postseason?
Postseason, injured at the end.
Irrefutable.
Included.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, irrefutable that Gabe Vincent was an upgrade over Kyle Lowry in the postseason.
And as Kyle Lowry gets into shape or looks different on Twitter, and you have 3 years, $85 million tied up in Kyle Lowry. And you saw during the season the unavailability of Kyle Lowry. When he was in the game, they played fast and the offense was spread out. And then when the postseason came, Kyle Lowry couldn't be trusted in any way. They weren't playing fast anymore. And then what happened in the playoffs is it's just Jimmy Butler all the time. And they do look better with Gabe Vincent because he's 26 and not injured and he's fast. But when I say look better, they were a lesser team than they were in the regular season when the best they were getting from point guard is the best of Gabe Vincent.
It would appear, considering how this offseason's turned out for Miami, which I think at this point you can label it fairly as disappointing. Now all your eggs are in Kyle Lowry's offseason regimen. That is the big plan right now because if Kyle Lowry, who appears to be in shape, and if he's healthy, and if he was what he was when he's at his best last year.
Not just that, though, but the health of Hero is also, like, all of these evaluations on team construction do come down to health.
Like 5 teams got better. You maybe caught a break a little bit with the Danilo injury, but Miami needs players to level up. Kyle Lowry, expecting Kyle Lowry to level up at, 37 years old? That's a tough situation to be in. Tyler Hero, hopefully still ascending, but it's been a bad offseason, man.
It's terrible offseason. Their biggest move is losing P.J. Tucker, a pretty valuable piece. Other than that, they're dormant. You know, and granted he wasn't healthy, but what we saw in the playoffs from Kyle Lowry at his age left you thinking this is a guy on career fumes, and whatever move they make in the offseason, God hope it includes Kyle Lowry out of here.
There is a scenario in which they improve on last year's form, and it is entirely on Kyle Lowry.
If he's in shape.
Being in shape and being his best self.
That's not the only option. They have not signed Jay Crowder or extended Hero because they still are leaving the space open for something to happen in the next few months that allow them to add one of the pieces they haven't been able to add so far.
Right. If they bring in Crowder, you could say lateral move from what P.J. Tucker brought to the table last year.
Just again, though, the reason they've done nothing, this is not up for dispute.
They were a game away from the NBA Finals, guys.
No, but they
might have been a wrong 3-point call.
Yeah.
They're not better.
No.
It can't be argued that they're better, and their other teams in the conference have clearly gotten better.
Yeah.
The thing I'm saying to you is, if they sign Jay Crowder, you should be disappointed because it means they're out on Durant or one of those giant moves that they cleared up. But they played all or nothing.
Yeah.
They played all or nothing this offseason. And so when you guys say now hugely disappointing offseason, it wasn't even to add a Donovan Mitchell. They were playing all or nothing on Kevin Durant.
Right. They got nothing except for the team that was at Game 7 and a Jimmy Butler 3-point attempt in which I don't know if you saw Jason Tatum's interview with Taylor Rooks, but he was terrified of that shot. That's how I know it was a good shot, because Boston didn't want him to take it. Everybody's heart was in their throats. For me, with the Miami Heat, I feel like the other teams, they were all in on Kevin Durant too. They were trying, but they still found ways to get better. Miami hasn't right now, and your hope is that a 37-year-old Kyle Lowry can somehow improve, and that Tyler Hero can somehow take that next step, and guys like Strus and Duncan Robinson, maybe you can get something out of him, can continue to develop, and that's not a great situation to be in. We'll say there is always another disgruntled superstar. Always. Even when you think there isn't. The one is going to come out of left field that you're not going to think is going to be available come that trade deadline, and Miami will still, once again, be in on that.
But Shams told us that they weren't, that they didn't call after Summer League. So, like, at a certain point, they weren't trying to get better. Like, they didn't go after Donovan Mitchell very hard. They didn't go after Kevin Durant very hard. So they weren't actively trying to land these superstars.
I believe that they weren't at all interested in Donovan Mitchell because Pat Riley just knew that he wasn't going to be able to deal with Danny Ainge. That he wasn't going to take part in whatever Danny Ainge was trying to do with the trade market. And they got a very clear signal from Brooklyn that the Durant thing wasn't happening. And Miami is very keen. That's why they don't want any leaks. They hate that stuff being out there because of how it disrupts the locker room.
He would have dealt with Danny Ainge plenty if Danny Ainge had Kevin Durant. And if Danny Ainge didn't want 1,000 draft picks, which the Miami...
but he always does, so he didn't.
But that's how every trade in the NBA works now. Every trade in the NBA is 3 picks and 2 swaps, minimum. And so the Heat are I think, biding their time to really go all in on something, but in the interim have left themselves exposed with a bunch of guys who you're asking for internal improvement, but a lot of low-ceiling role players are entering year 4.
I think it can be said without dispute, as analysis today, a week before Media Day kicks off, the team being reintroduced to us, it's not just that they haven't gotten better. They've gotten worse. You lose P.J. Tucker and the things that he brought, it makes you worse, and you create a distance in the conference where more teams are at the top of it because of how they improved. You're worse. As of now, this offseason leaves the Heat worse than they were last year. But they were really good last year. It just means that now you've got to fear healthy Milwaukee. You probably should have feared them last year. If Middleton had been playing, you might not have had the season that you had relying on just Jimmy Butler with your injured team at the end. You might have lost to Milwaukee right after Boston. Milwaukee might have ended Boston and then ended you soon thereafter.
It's not just the contenders that got better. It's the teams that aren't too far away, or at least the fan bases that don't think they're too far away from Miami also getting better. Teams like Atlanta took steps this offseason. Cleveland took steps this offseason. So I'm concerned about Miami. As they get older and the young teams get better with progression and add talent, Miami's in a precarious situation.
I'm struggling with this conversation. We're talking basketball. It's football season. I mean, I am currently looking at the passing yard leaders in the NFL. Number 1, Tua. Number 2, Carson Wentz. Number 3, Joe Flacco. I mean, what a time to be alive.
That's basically a random name generator.
Wow. Take a photo of that standing. Wow.
Giannis also is getting better in a way the Heat's best players are not.
You're also relying upon, another A-level Jimmy Butler season.
Right.
And as the years go on, that becomes a little bit less likely. I still think he'll give you a lot, but there is a chance that the Tibbs minutes catch up. There is a chance that he is not the absolute A-level superstar that he was in the playoffs to get you from within a shot of the finals.
Stugotz, where are you on your dueling takes, even though you're checking passing standings? Well, you've got Giannis. You've got Giannis winning all future titles and Tatum winning a bunch of future titles as well.
Right.
And Giannis is getting, when I say he's getting better, Jimmy Butler, whatever he is, this is what he is. He's not going to continue improving. Giannis, if you're watching him, he seems to continue to grow as a basketball player. This seems to be still something in his prime.
I have Giannis still winning, like 4 or 5 championships, and Tatum probably winning like 2 or 3, something like that.
And we're doing the mistake.
And Durant never winning one.
I think we're making a sincere mistake in just looking at the top of last year's Eastern Conference when it's not sexy to say Brooklyn also got better.
They did.
Because we're getting out of the pandemic, and the Kyrie Irving thing shouldn't be as messy as it was, although he's out there reposting Alex Jones right now. Brooklyn is also a major issue in this conference. That's why you wanted to get Kevin Durant, not only for you, but to take him away from them.
Because Simmons is returning for them, and we've got another season where we're going to be able to talk about that.
They also got good ancillary pieces. I'm telling you, no one wants to talk about Brooklyn. In my mind, Brooklyn's a favorite.
That's all we've done is talk about Brooklyn.
No, I know, but not now that no one's really established the pivot in that Durant's back, and they're running it back. And if they're healthy and not as crazy, they're obviously a team that you have to talk about.
The Miami Heat is looking like a 10 seed.
Well, I was about to say.
I think 5 is a fair way to break down Miami's chances.
Yeah, I was about to say there's 3 or 4 teams in the East that you could argue should be number 1, and one of them is not Miami. They're just not in the mix.
You could have people pick Cleveland over Miami. You could have people in their own division pick
They're
the
not
Hawks.
in the mix. They're not in the mix.
They're not in the mix to be
They're
number
not
1.
in the mix.
No, they're going to be lucky to have a home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs.
They're not in the mix.
Not in the mix.
Yeah, I think
That's crazy.
Just out of the mix.
That's
Greg,
not.
You just had him as a 10
Greg, I'm going to pay it back.
I was joking.
That was an excellent point by Greg Cote.
Thank you.
It was. I don't expect the Miami Heat to have a home court advantage in the first round.
There you go. You and I on that take.
We have great takes
We're
today.
there.
You know who is in the mix?
What was that?
Dolphins.
Yeah.
You're not sure.
Play the Bills.
You better get it in this week. You
Yeah.
better get it in this week, Chris Cote. You're so scared of the Bills.
Josh Allen's coming.
You know what was the least popular thing I did in terms of scheduling sitters and spinning all these plates? Moving my daughter's birthday off of the 23rd because the Cessa Cyclone season opens up on Friday.
Why you moved your daughter's birthday? Like you changed it
It's your
permanently.
birthday, though.
Yeah,
I like the idea of you
that was-
changing her birthday
Born
permanently.
like that.
Sorry.
Birthday certificate
923
has been
is clone
changed.
say.
FSU Miami always falls on that day. Sorry, you're gonna have to get a new birthday.
Yeah. FSU Miami for a very long time always fell on my birthday weekend, and it was always during a stretch when FSU was dominating Miami, and it made for miserable birthday weekend.
I got to be honest. That is what I imagine, and I don't know whether he has kids or not, but Jeff DeForest doing with his 2 or 3 year old. You cannot change a child's birthday around the cesta, around the Cyclones, around highlight, around college football. You cannot do these things.
Whoa, Dan, you know how starved this market is for a champion, and this show delivered a champion in the Cessa Cyclones. Inaugural battle. Well, was it inaugural? Who cares? It's the only one that anyone remembers. The Cessa Cyclones are running it back outside of one guy that Chris Cote said he was going to draft and then lied directly to his face. We're running it back, and we're national
I didn't
now.
lie. I didn't know we weren't going to draft him.
We are making our ESPN 3 debut. That's right. You can follow our Cessa Cyclones that have a championship patch and way more Dan LeBatard Show with Stugotz branding now to take advantage of the fact that we're on ESPN. We begin our title reign, our defense on Friday, and then on the 30th, the clones are going to be out there in full force with our NIL athletes watching our clones from the owner's box. Destiny Harden and Tyler Van Dyke are going to be out there waving their clones' pom-poms.
It's just a little platform.
That's okay. Don't undersell it. It will be, we didn't know we were going to be on ESPN the last time. Our infiltration, all of a sudden we're watching Cyclone games on one of the ESPN's. Mike Ryan's giving out a trophy. No one told me we were doing any of this. Now we go into the next season as defending champions. But
and you'll be happy to know the last Battle Court season, the main marquee games were on Sundays. Obviously, it's football season. Your Saturdays and your Sundays are occupied. Nice little spot for the Friday night lights. Friday night Battle Court.
Who's your biggest threat this year? Who got better in the offseason?
Please don't ask any more questions.
What do you
about
mean?
this.
It's important.
The
Champions.
Wall Warriors.
The Wall Warriors, for sure.
That is the
Yeah.
best rivalry
Yeah.
in all of Battle Court. It's the final last season when I was in an owner's suite that it was overtaken by Wall Warriors, and we somehow pulled one through. Wall Warriors, Cessa Cyclones, as fierce as a rivalry gets.
You're
in
trying
sports.
to actively
The tough
alienate
sentence.
our listeners.
No, it's a
aren't
big
you?
one this Friday. Stugotz will
Wall
be out there.
Warriors.
It's going to be great.
Where?
That's why I prefer Darby.
Stugotz will not
Wow,
be out
Stugotz
there.
is going to be there.
No,
Who plays
Stugotz.
Friday night?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Stugotz is going to be out there. He
Up Bears
he
face?
has pledged his support of the Cessa Cyclones. He's going to be out there 2 consecutive Fridays.
Wow.
Here on the 23rd.
There's just no way that happens.
and on the 30th to celebrate our NIL deals.
I bet large amounts of money against Stugotz going.
It's a safe bet.
No, he promised.
Well, in that case,
What's a bigger favorite, Stugotz not showing up or Whitty wearing a suit today on picture day?
He loves a picture day.
put it on the poll, Guillermo, at LeBatard Show. Do you hate the guy who wears a suit on picture day? You mentioned Friday night. Also put on the poll at LeBatard Show. Who do you feel worse for on social media? The guy who gets caught liking porn without knowing he's getting caught liking porn, or the person watching that person at 11 p.m. and showing to everyone else on the internet that person was liking porn? What's the more pathetic act at 11 p.m. on a Friday?
I'd say Doc Rivers.
Chris Cote, you said that you had proof that you were feeling like a winner. You informed your father in the kitchen moments ago of the Franco Harris story from yesterday, that you thought the legendary running back, Hall of Fame running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who was the punctuation on the Immaculate Reception, that his name was Frank O'Harris, and that he was a white Irishman who played...
well, I didn't say all that. I just thought his name was Franco Harris. I didn't ever really know what he looked like. I just kind of heard the name. But you guys mocked me, I would say. Everyone in here. No one came to my defense saying, oh, I might have thought that too.
Why would we?
That's fair. But I'm telling you, the internet came to my defense. And Andrew Streeter found something on these streets that proves that I might be right.
It'll be third down and 9. Bradshaw.
Franco Harris, pride and joy of the Emerald Isle. Franco Harris, give him half a yard, he'll take a mile. And if Terry Bradshaw knows what's up, he'll audible once again. Cause you hand it off to O'Harris, and he scores it every time.
Bradshaw trying to get away. And his pass. Franco Harris has it.
The reception was immaculate. Franco Harris, he will not embarrass us. Instead he will embarrass your D-line. Cause you hand it off to O'Harris, and he scores it every time. Hey!
I'm sorry, Chris.
That was great.
Should be Irish.
I'm telling you, I saw a lot of people on Twitter, a lot of smart people with blue check marks, learned yesterday that it was not Franco Harris.
Did you guys enjoy? I thought I could have watched for about 10 hours Eli Manning in makeup pretending to be awkward recruit Chad Powers walking on at Penn State. I could have watched 10 hours of that. Of his makeup looked so ridiculous. It looked nothing like Eli Manning, but that must have been so much fun for Eli Manning to go out to Penn State and just wow a bunch of coaches in makeup who didn't know it was Eli Manning. Mike, why are you shaking your
They all
head?
knew it was Eli Manning. Come on.
That was the worst one of, because you see these type of things on the air. Oh, this famous person's gonna. They usually are pretty decent. That one was clear. Everyone was acting. Dude. They were like, "Who's this guy walking up? He doesn't look like a freshman." It's like, come on.
Well, the coaches knew, but not the players.
I don't know. I wasn't buying that one.
You weren't.
He looks 42.
He really does. I'm looking at it now. He looks like Spagoli.
He didn't look like a college kid. He looked like he had a bit of a pituitary problem.
He looks like he could still play, if you ask me.
He can sling it.
What surprises you when he's with college kids, you realize, holy shit, Eli Manning was physically big.
And the name, Chad Powers.
Good name.
Come on,
I'd sign that name.
Same.
Tony, are you ready to give us your top 5 football observations? That was a very, very sporty local hour. I do fear our audience is going to get so sick of the Tua talk if this is what it is after 2 games.
I was getting annoyed with it. It's just like we can't agree. Let's just we'll check back later in the season. Can we agree not to talk about Tua for 5 weeks?
Chris, I'm with you.
We can talk about the games. We can talk about the games, but let's not do the thing back and forth of, oh, he's got to let's just wait for 5 weeks from now.
So you don't want to talk about Tua after the Bills game?
After week 7.
Right.
That's when
Chris,
we can have the next
your
Tua conversation.
Father, I have not seen your father that excited about sports. He came in here winded, and he said, this is what he explained to me. He said, Dan, I was talking so fast I didn't even recognize myself. It's like when I listened back to the Greg Cote show featuring Greg Cote at 1.5 speed.
1.8. Yeah.
1.8 was ideal, you said last week.
It was
but now
ideal.
with this new pep in your step, slow it down a little.
Pep in it.
My dad always will tell me after recording, hey, can you just put this out at 1.8? Because I love the way I sound. I'm like, Dad, just bring more energy.
I can't do it naturally. I'm naturally lugubrious. I need that jolt of artificial vigor.
Well, Tua gave you the real vigor. You came in here and your speech was winded from the enthusiasm of wanting to talk about what happened on Sunday.
I haven't seen that since Marino was pitching to Duper and Clayton in 1986. It was unbelievable. It was a time warp. It was crazy.
Tony, let's get we didn't have room. There were a bunch of people bouncing off each other to give their football opinions yesterday, so there wasn't even room for Tony's top 5 football observations.
And you'll be happy to know now we finally have ample time to prepare for this segment. We got the imaging right.
All right.
Tony's segment here.
Before you get to the imaging, just real quick, this will be a funny joke only to the handful of people who remember Sanford and Son. But I read from the Twitter account Super 70 Sports that Tom Brady is presently older than the first 4 seasons of Grady, the best friend of Red Fox in Sanford and Son. Trust me when I tell you it's funny to only people of a certain age, but Grady was old on television at the moment he was on television, and to think of Tom Brady as older than Grady's first 4 seasons of Sanford and Son seems impossible.
I thought you meant Grady Sizemore.
Let's do top 5.
He had a great beard.
Loved Grady.
He was very old. Let's do. Roy appreciated that. No one else in the shipping container has any Sanford and Son knowledge.
It's like anytime I hear the word camel meal, and I'm like, whatever you mean. I don't know what that is.
Time now for Tony's top 5 observations.
That's not part of the image.
I thought that was it as a joke.
What up, Tony?
All right, guys. This is exciting. We got the music finally down.
Yeah.
We got the top 5 going. Let's start with number 5.
I legitimately thought that the imaging was just going to be that sound.
A series of PC error noises.
Just one at the beginning and let Tony flounder out there by himself with just the sound of his voice.
The beginning was going to be Clippy asking you what you want to do on Microsoft.
RIP, by the way, Clippy. Number 5. There's something about Cooper Rush.
No.
There's something about him.
Right,
There's something
there is
about
something.
him.
Come on.
Mike was there. He saw it in person.
Yeah.
There's something about him.
Yep.
They're going to talk themselves into he's better than Dak Prescott, aren't they?
Maybe. Depends on if that defensive line plays the same way. Number 4. We need a Marcus Lattimore versus Mike Evans MMA match at the end of the season. We just need it. They fought twice already in the last 3 years. We just need them bare knuckle in the middle of the. We do it at Jerry where we could sell tickets.
Who do you got?
Right in the middle.
Who do you got?
Mike Evans.
Yeah.
I would like Mike Evans to have to serve that suspension in order to just dilute it a bit, only the next time he has to face Lattimore, because I think he'd prefer it that way anyway.
He actually would, yeah.
He doesn't want to go up
His
against that
splits
guy.
are really bad. Number 3. This is going to be exciting for everybody in here. Tua has some juice.
Wow, juice.
A little note. Game manager to game changer? Question mark.
Whoa, hello.
What are you, writing
Question
graphics
mark.
for First Take?
Question mark? I mean, he's been a game manager so far, and all of a sudden, is he evolving into a game changer?
So much for
That's
waiting
you to
till week
decide.
7.
I like that.
Number 2.
Number 2. Nathaniel can't hack it. Guy stinks.
Yeah, I like what
He
you did
is
there.
so bad.
It's writing.
Russell Wilson was 8 for 29 or something. I'm like, what is happening here? Anyways.
And number 1.
Number 1, the most impressive thing I saw, Tony's top 5 for week 2. Kyler Murray doesn't need to read defenses as long as he can do that. He doesn't need to.
Right.
He doesn't need to. He ran for 25 seconds around, got into that 2-point conversion, threw a ball to AJ Green. He was sliding down between 17 people. He's amazing. Doesn't need to read defenses. Forget it.
Thank you, Tony. There were so many things that we didn't talk about in the football weekend, Stugotz, because, and I don't know, Cody, do you have any interests outside of the Dolphins? Because when I'm watching last night, you guys tell me if you guys have read or heard a good explanation for how it is the Vikings could look like that and do that to Aaron Rodgers. And then you see the Vikings and Kirk Cousins is terrible in prime time again. And Justin Jefferson, who I don't believe can be covered by anybody, when they throw to Justin Jefferson, he gets 1 catch, and Darius Slay gets 2 interceptions. You explain to me the difference between what the Vikings look like against the Packers and what the Vikings look like against the Eagles. You bet Vikings?
I took the Vikings, yes. Made the mistake. I didn't realize how bad Kirk Cousins has been in prime time, but I did take the Vikings. I can't really explain it other than football. Like maybe the Vikings just better at home than they are on the road. He's that bad in prime time, but I can't really explain it.
Well, he was. I think he was 5-17 in prime time before last year. He did win 2 in prime time, and Philadelphia was. I was shocked they were only favored by 2 points at home. I thought Philly was going to win.
It's because of what Minnesota did to Green Bay. It's because of how they made Aaron Rodgers look.
Listen, this league, this season, I know it seems like we say this every year, maybe this year more so. I want to admit something, and I'm embarrassed to say it. After 2 weeks, my record of predicting games is 14-17-1. Not against the spread, overall. I am under 500 just picking games. It's ridiculous. Those big 4 comeback games, I had all 3 of them before the comebacks. I mean, it's crazy, the NFL this year, more so than usual.
How does that stat work? The big 4 comebacks game, you had...
I had all 4
He was right for
wins.
a half.
I had all 4 wins until the ridiculous comeback. I had the Ravens.
Okay, but let's
had the Browns?
Let's acknowledge around here that it's hard, obviously, to pick correctly these games. Someone explain to me, Dalvin Cook... Explain to me Derrick Henry combining for 42 yards last night. For the 2 of them, two running backs that I expect to not be 42 yards of offense.
But once that game got away from Tennessee, there's no more Derrick Henry.
Well, no, the Dalvin Cook one is easier to explain because of the shape that game took. There was a point in the game, in the Bills game, where it was still within reaching distance for the Titans. Remember, it was 7-7 after a quarter. Derrick Henry actually scored on the first drive. There was a point where I saw the stat line was 11 carries for 13 yards for Derrick Henry. Now, I know Taylor Lewan went down, and the second he went down, that game was over because Tennessee had a game plan going into that to run the ball, control it. They were actually doing all right in the line of scrimmage. He went out. It was game over. But Derrick Henry does look different after that foot injury. Remember how explosive he would look on a toss. You would toss to Derrick Henry, and he would get a head of steam going, and he was impossible to bring down. He looked so slow coming out of the break compared to what he was.
How can it be so fragile, though, that we spend 7 years analyzing Ryan Tannehill? The league tells you, can't start, can only have a backup job. You're going to have to come to Tennessee, and you're going to have to sit behind Mariota. And then all I have to do behind Tannehill is give him the most overwhelming theme we've ever seen at running back. They're a 1 seed. They look like they'll maul physically anybody in the league. Vrabel makes the decision to play Derrick Henry in a playoff game, and it costs them the game because he's got a plate in his foot and he's not Derrick Henry anymore, and they're not the same team anymore. And look at what Tannehill looked like last night when he's got no Derrick Henry. When you're trying to artificially put around a guy who's not value at quarterback anymore because he's expensive. A bunch of pieces that hide, protect him, aid him, and it's all as fragile as Derrick Henry's foot in a game that's so violent that whatever assessments we're making now are going to be irrelevant 3 weeks from now because all over the fields everywhere, the halftime reports are a reporter coming in and saying, this person's still in the locker room, this person's got a shoulder, this person's got a knee, this person's got an ankle, and everyone by the end of week 7 is going to be crawling on their knees and torsos.
Except Brady.
Yeah. But the Titans were kind of built around Derrick Henry, and they were just hoping for Derrick Henry to be the outlier that he had been for the 4 years prior. I mean, everything that you hear about Derrick Henry is how much he ran under Nick Saban, that entering in the NFL, he had a lot of wear on those tires, and yet he might have put up a Hall of Fame career by age 28. And I'm not even saying he still can't be good. It's just that Derrick Henry that we saw exploding out of the break once getting a toss, that was the fastest guy on the field at 6'3" in his weight, is probably done.
How can the construct be so flimsy, though, that Vrabel goes from the one guy in the Belichick camp that can lead and outsmart Belichick on clock management to 3 games later, if you can't hand it to Henry, you're done as a team. And look, Tannehill's got 2 interceptions, and you're not going to win anything in that conference with those quarterbacks.
It's a window, man. The window closed on them, and they actually had a 3-year window, I think, and that's... For unless you have these dynastic teams and these quarterbacks that are top level, that's pretty much what it is. The Eagles, if you look back to the core that won that title, it's a huge outlier. They flashed for a very brief, small window. That window closed rapidly.
And Tannehill had his best receiver taken away from him. When you do that to Aaron Rodgers, he's still Aaron Rodgers. When you do that to Tannehill, he's not nearly as good.
Mike, you said that window. The window closed easily and quickly. It's reopened. It's closed and reopened.
Yeah, but the Eagles, they revamped the entire roster.
Different core, different coach.
But what I'm saying is in that speed, in the speed of you just saying the Eagles are done, I'm like, no, they're not. The Titans are.
No, I'm saying, I was holding up the Eagles Super Bowl champion of Nick Foles. Like, if you look at that team and that core, Fletcher Cox is the only player that was on that roster before, maybe Miles Sanders, but they totally revamped the roster, and so far so good. 2 games into it, I love their draft strategy. They got A.J. Brown. They did what the Dolphins did and get this quarterback as many possible weapons, and let's still leave ourselves flexible for next year if we realize that we're a quarterback away. Right now, the bet on Jalen Hurts to give him the talent to see what he can do is so far working.
To Mike's point on Derrick Henry, he had 219 carries through 8 games last year. 8 games.
He was amazing. He was on pace for 2,000 yards last year. Foot injury happens. Maybe they rushed him back a little bit. We all saw it.
They did. Maybe.
Definitely, because he looked like a shell of himself in that playoff game. But now you're left wondering, is he forever changed after that foot injury?
Greg Cote, football expert, 14, 17-1, picking games for I don't know how many years for the Miami Herald.
32.
Someone tell me somewhere, send it to the show where I can read something that explains to me how Jalen Hurts can look like that against the Vikings when Aaron Rodgers looked like he did against the Vikings. Because in week-to-week analysis of doing games and betting on games, I don't know anybody who would have predicted what I just said, which is Jalen Hurts will put up whatever it was, the 26 for 32, and I'm running all over the field, and I've got the best offensive line in football.
Right.
And Aaron Rodgers would not be able to do anything against the Vikings.
The Packers had a ton of drops in that game.
And no receivers. He was thrown to his running back.
No, Lazard is really important. And
yes.
Lazard, it's been, I saw on social media somebody highlighting Lazard's downfield blocking. Their identity is run first. In Green Bay, they are a run-first team. They need to get the running game cooking. If they fall back, you need to count on receivers to make plays downfield. Aaron Rodgers had the open throw. You had a drop. Game was over after that because then Minnesota takes the ball and scores, and you don't have any faith in your receivers. And over the last 2 week ones, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers kind of check out on week 1 if it's not going their way.
I'll take a stab at it as well because last year – the Green Bay Packers lost to New Orleans on the opening day 38-3, and there was a lot of conversation after week 1 about the teams that just didn't play any of their starters any snaps. And Green Bay has done that for 2 years in a row, have come out completely flat in week 1. And when you look at the Minnesota difference, so much of what we saw in that game last night is that Justin Jefferson has no space, when in week 1, he was in acres of space. He had 15 yards either side of him on a big touchdown. Green Bay just didn't seem ready for week 1. And you talk about Aaron Rodgers trying to mesh with new receivers, 7 points, like that stuff takes timing, takes game reps, and it seems like Aaron Rodgers just needs 1 in order to start getting going.
If I was a fantasy owner of Aaron Jones, I would be really happy right now because the blueprint to me is, look, Lazard's real good, you're right, but other than that, he's got no elite wideouts, and Lazard's not elite, but he's good. You have to run the ball if you're Green Bay, and that's what we saw last night. Aaron Jones is super good. He's a top 5 back in the NFL, but when you have Aaron Rodgers, he's not always allowed to show it.
And they have Quadzilla, the quad father, and A.J. Dillon, too, who is still young, powerful, fast, can help out in the passing game. They have a very dynamic running attack. And when you don't have people to block downfield and you can't get that running game going and the game situation gets out of hand, you lose who you are.
How is Aaron Rodgers on a run-first team?
I want to ask you something, Stugotz. How are you not aware of Kirk Cousins in prime time? Because I feel like there are 2 things that we know about Kirk Cousins. We've been arguing about him for years, about whether or not he's good or not, worth the money, et cetera, et cetera.
So one of the things is we don't know.
And one of the things that we're always doubting about him is every time he plays in one of these important games, we all see him stink, except for the one playoff game on the road against New Orleans.
Right.
The one game against New Orleans where we're like, oh, he made the throw at the end, and he beat Drew Brees on the road, and we're like, maybe we can talk ourselves into it. But otherwise, there's no one else in the sport who has quite this reputation, mentioned, Stugotz. If you put him as the sole game and he's not playing at 1 o'clock or 4 o'clock with a bunch of other games, you're going to lose that game and everyone's going to say Kirk Cousins stinks. That's a weird thing to have draped around your neck.
It's easy to gamble my money after the game, armed with the results. I mean, I took the Vikings. Listen, I was 4-1 over the weekend. I mean, give me a little credit. I know Greg's having a tough season. I'm having maybe my greatest season ever picking games, college and the NFL. So much so, I feel a super Twitter follower in my future.
Wow.
Because I'm giving away these picks for free, and really people should be paying for them. I mean,
how did you turn into?
I was 9-2 last week.
Not knowing Kirk Cousins was any good in primetime. How'd you turn it into a referendum on your gambling record?
You picked at the scab. You wanted to highlight the one you got wrong.
I didn't know how many he got right or wrong. I want to understand this thing that Kirk Cousins
about my winners.
is draped in, because no one else in the sport is draped in that thing.
The thing about Cousins isn't just the primetime. It's also the fumbling. He's a notorious fumbler. He did it again last night, and they showed a stat on the screen: 72 fumbles since, I think, 2016.
Since he became a starter. Most in the NFL.
The most in the NFL by a lot.
Yes.
9-2 against the spread is all that Stugotz has to say about Kirk Cousins.
I mean, you're criticizing me for taking the Vikings.
Hey, if I was 9-2,
I
I'd be
thought it was a
saying
different Viking team, Kevin O'Connell.
Stugotz,
by the way, Kevin O'Connell looks like a guy named Kevin O'Connell. I mean, he does.
I was throwing into your lap. Can't perform in prime time. I thought it was the wheelhouse. You decided to show me your gambling bona fides the first 2 weeks. Been wanting to talk to Anna Wolfe for a couple of days. She writes for Mississippi Today, and she's done thorough, exhaustive reporting that not a lot of people are doing in local news these days, as newspapers die a little more and corruption and accountability start failing all over the place. So you've got, Anna, this story with Brett Favre. And thank you for joining us. Thank you for the piece that you did, because it was thorough. And I know you must have had a whole lot of people playing defense against you, embarrassing a local icon. So thank you first for being on with us, and thank you for the work. What can you tell us about how the last few days have been for you? Because reporters like to report good stories, but don't like so much what can come with them sometimes. I don't know if you're getting universal applause or not.
I sometimes I think I have like selective hearing, because I don't really get, hate mail or, people are not really mad about what I'm doing. It doesn't seem like. I think that there has been a lot more national attention on this story, and it's always kind of interesting to see what is going to capture the national attention, because I've been working on the story for 2.5 years, 3 years, 4 years in terms of just reporting on what welfare is in Mississippi. But I'm eager for people to learn about this story. So I'm glad, whatever it takes, that people are hearing it.
It's particularly appalling, right? Mississippi's in the 50s in all the bad categories, and there's only 150 for lack of affluence, for poverty. And so when Brett Favre is evidently, your reporting suggests that he's stealing from the poor, obviously that's something that America is going to pay attention to. But can you take us through the last 4 years and what you're doing with your reporting?
Sure. So, going back to the beginning, I started at Mississippi Today in 2018, and I really, went to the editor of the publication and said, we don't have someone reporting on poverty in Mississippi, and we need someone. So I pitched him the beat, and I got hired, and my first goal was to figure out what we were doing with this fund. Temporary assistance for needy families is the federal fund we're talking about. And I knew that I could look to that program as an indicator of how the state addresses poverty, because the funding is so lax and states really have such broad discretion on how to spend the funds, that I knew that I could look to that to see, how does the state regard the poor? That would be the perfect place to start, since the state can do virtually whatever it wants with it. And really the goal at the beginning was just to find out how people are being served in Mississippi. Are the programs effective? Is what we're doing effective in drawing people out of poverty? Why is our poverty rate so high? when we get, 40% of our budget is from federal funds, much of which is intended to help people out of poverty. And so that's how it started, pretty innocently enough. I remember at the beginning of my time at Mississippi Today, I kind of sat on the floor with these TANF federal reports, like splayed out on the floor, trying to make sense of the numbers. And eventually, just, less than a couple years later, this huge scandal broke. And it was kind of the culmination of these efforts to find out what we were doing with this money.
But what is the answer to your question? Why is it that Mississippi can't distribute these funds ethically enough?
So, this is a problem across the country where the welfare rolls, the people receiving cash welfare assistance, have dropped dramatically since the 90s, since the genesis of this program. And so, the state's still getting the money every year, no matter if the people who are applying for it are being approved or not. And so that means that if the money's not going to people in poverty, then the state still has the money to spend on virtually whatever they wish. And the welfare program in Mississippi, it doesn't prioritize outcomes. It doesn't look to see if what we're doing with the money actually puts a dent in poverty. It really more can be used as a way to further this idea about people in poverty that, people just need to get a job, or, people in poverty aren't taking care of their kids well enough, or, they're broken families. We need fatherhood programs to encourage fathers to take care of their kids. I mean, very stereotypical and frankly racist and racially charged notions within our welfare program that, say that people in poverty just need a pep talk from Brett Favre in order to escape poverty, and not actually prioritizing evidence-based practices for interrupting generational poverty.
Tell people what happened here with Brett Favre, the most appalling of the details. And where did this start for you? Because I feel like this was the latest story, but this is the second time that I've read about Brett Favre stealing from the poor. This one just seems to be more thorough or more advanced on the timeline than the first time that this came out.
Right. So we broke a story back in 2020, so over 2 years ago. Right after 6 people were arrested within this welfare scandal. And one of the charges within those indictments was that this nonprofit founder took $2 million from the welfare program and invested it personally in a pharmaceutical company called Prevacus that was developing a drug to treat concussions. And I don't know if you've seen this media, but Brett Favre was very much a spokesperson for this pharmaceutical company. He was going around telling people that, they needed to invest in it because it was going to be this revolutionary drug that was going to, help athletes, prevent brain damage from concussions. And we were able to tie that to Brett Favre at the outset, and not just tie him to this pharmaceutical company, but then also realizing that this $5 million that went to build a volleyball stadium at University of Southern Mississippi was also a project that Favre was pushing. And that kind of just informed how our welfare program was operating, that someone like Brett Favre could come in and have so much influence over how the money was spent. So that was in 2020. And then all along the way, we've sort of learned, it's been kind of a trickle of information out that we've learned more and more about how he communicated with these welfare officials to make this happen. Back in April, we published what I think are some of the most explosive pieces of communication, where Brett Favre was offering the governor stock in the company in exchange for his help, and telling the governor that they were getting this money from the state. And 2 days after the governor, former Governor Phil Bryant, left office, he agreed by text message to accept the stock in the company. And that story didn't really reach the national airwaves, but fast forward to today, just last week, we published text messages that show that give a little bit more insight into his thinking around the volleyball stadium, where he was communicating with the nonprofit founder who had this money, about moving the money to the volleyball stadium. And he even said at one point, if you give me this money, will the media find out how much and where it came from? And I think that kind of, communication showing how they were operating in secrecy has been sort of what has captured the national attention so much. But at the end of the day, like, this has been a more than 2-year process in trying to determine how he was involved. And we've been there every step of the way.
How did you get those texts?
Well, reporters can't reveal their sources. These most recent texts were filed into the court system. So there's been different sourcing for different text messages, but these most recent texts were filed in a court case.
The reason I asked the question, I wasn't looking for your source. I'm looking so that the audience can know. I did not know whether it's, whether this was within freedom of information. It's odd to have someone caught so red-handed that they're asking the person that they're committing the crime with, no one's going to know where the money came from or that it's tied to me, right? Like you don't usually get that kind of admission.
Right. So these most recent text messages were gathered by the attorney for Nancy New, who's the nonprofit founder that was spending this money. But most of the other text messages that I described have been gathered by investigators. And so they are part of the investigative file that the FBI, has possession of and is continuing to use to investigate this scandal.
Nancy New, she pled guilty, right, to 13 felonies within this welfare scandal?
That's right. That includes fraud and bribery and even a RICO charge, racketeering.
And she is doing this because there are people above her who know things, right? She's not at the top of this.
That's right. She, at the very beginning, the state auditor who investigated the scandal initially really put all the focus on Nancy New and the former director of the Department of Human Services, who was a Phil Bryant appointee, John Davis, and really kind of made the story about them, about the scheme that they were perpetuating. But, more and more we've learned that they were really taking orders from the top. Certainly, Nancy New didn't necessarily have a relationship with Brett Favre that she was willing to put, so much of her life on the line for him. There were other people involved. And I think she received a pretty generous plea deal back in April after our stories first published. That only suggests that she's got information that they find valuable on people higher up the chain. And she's working with prosecutors at this point. I feel like her position is that she's already pled guilty. She doesn't really have that much to lose. So at this point, I think she's willing to, get the real story out there and just, make sure that the public knows the truth, that she didn't act alone.
Anna, what was happening here? Is Brett Favre just close with the governor and he can just call in favors?
That's what it appears to be. There is a missing piece of the timeline here that has come out more recently. We know that Brett Favre met with welfare officials in July of 2017. And at that initial meeting, John Davis, the head of DHS, immediately verbally committed $4 million to the project. This is a state agency head. This is a bureaucrat. He's not going to do that without, some reason to do that or some approval to spend $4 million of state agency funds. He answers directly to the governor. So we don't know, exactly how that meeting got set up, but I don't think it was Brett Favre's idea to target the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families program. I don't know that Brett Favre knows or knew what TANF was. So someone had to make that connection for him.
Is Phil Bryant just a fan of the quarterback? Is the governor just fanboying?
That's a good question. I mean, I think going back to what I was describing earlier, this fund was such a target for abuse, such a target for manipulation that, they could have used the money on virtually anything. And so when you think like, why would the state leaders of this state do this for Brett Favre? Like, I just don't think they thought that it was that big of a deal. Brett Favre's kind of like Mississippi's favorite son, right? In Mississippi, we rank 50th in so many bad things, and we one thing that we actually do pretty well is we produce some pretty good athletes, and we exalt those athletes. We exalt celebrity in this state. And I think our state leaders in particular, Phil Bryant, they wanted to use their position to ingratiate themselves and feel close to people that made them feel important and powerful.
Is Southern Miss any good at women's volleyball? Is his daughter good at volleyball?
I'm not a big sports person, but it's actually really funny you bring that up, because I heard an interview that came out before our initial stories published in April, where Brett Favre was talking about this volleyball stadium and talking about the program at USM. And it's not going to be a direct quote, but I remember him saying that, in most cases, the program comes before the facility. So he was saying that in most cases, a university will have a really good team, will have a really good program and be doing really well. And then they'll get this really nice facility. And then he said, USM is different. We have this really nice facility. We don't quite have the team yet. And so it sounds like he was saying that maybe they haven't been very successful, but that they have these really great facilities that had nothing to do with them being a great program, but had everything to do with, having Brett Favre in their corner and welfare officials in Mississippi.
And I want to explain to the audience, perhaps they know this, but I don't think they do, the amount of work and effort that goes toward chasing these injustices down, the resources. How much defense was played against you to make sure that you couldn't get at the truth here? Because nobody wants you to, these people don't want to be exposed this way.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, I can't even describe all of the roadblocks that I received, that I was up against in trying to get this information from the Department of Human Services long before there was any indication of a scandal occurring, right? I just was very innocently wanting to know what we were doing with this money and how we were helping people. And frankly, they had no information about, the people that they were serving. So there was no information about how Nancy News organization was helping people out of poverty. There wasn't data on how many people got jobs or how much money people were making after exiting the program. There just wasn't really anything there to show for. And I was trying to get expenditure reports, and I've been calling it gaslighting, because they would send me things that didn't really make any sense. They weren't what I was asking for, but they would never get on the phone with me. I could never actually talk to another human. So I was just sending email after email, please tell me how you're spending this money. I just want to know that it's helping people. And, I can recall one public records request that I got that could have potentially, if it were actually responded to, we could have probably learned a good bit earlier on than we did. But they charged me, several thousands of dollars, or wanted to charge me several thousands of dollars that I just couldn't pay for the records. And that's a pretty typical, delay tactic, or obstruction tactic that state officials use to prevent public information from getting out.
How much were you lied to?
And I was thinking about this text message that I sent Brett Favre in early 2020, while I was breaking the stories about his involvement with the pharmaceutical company and also the volleyball stadium. I asked him very simply if he had ever had a conversation with the governor about the volleyball stadium, and he said no. And that's in a text message. I mean, that seems like a pretty simple thing, but that's a pretty big lie that we now know, only just found out, really this week on paper, have proof that that was a lie. And it has been that constantly throughout this process.
I would imagine, given the story, the way that you're telling it, you're coming in with the best of intentions. Let me report on whether funds for the poor are getting to the poor and how. Let me just get at the truth of this. And you had no idea that Brett Favre's name would scroll across your desk. You didn't even have any interest in that, right?
That's absolutely right. I never really thought that the stories that I told were going to be very sexy or very well read. I just was passionate about getting to the heart of the issue of poverty in Mississippi, because I had started out, earlier at the Clarion Ledger, the statewide newspaper, reporting on healthcare. And that was a beat that I really cared about. But I kept coming across this scenario where I would be reporting on healthcare issues, healthcare billing. And the real problem was poverty at the core. It was poverty kept being the overlapping factor that would, it was really the sort of the root cause of so many of the things that I was writing about. And no one was just purely writing about poverty. And so that's what I was trying to tackle. And the simplest way to do that, in my mind, it seemed to be tackling public assistance programs. What is the Department of Human Services doing for people? And that's really how all of this began.
How else did Governor Phil Bryant obstruct you beyond that common tactic in Freedom of Information Act when they make you pay thousands of dollars for documents so that it becomes too expensive to find what the truth is?
I mean, that's the main one, but also, they wouldn't talk to you. So you can't, not every single question can be answered with a record. I mean, we can get really close, and that's the best. Records are king as far as sources in my perspective, but at the end of the day, like, there's some things that you have to talk to a human about, and they would not let anyone talk to me. At one point, they started diverting all of my communication with the Department of Human Services through the AG's office. And so if I asked a simple question about, what's happening with these applications for TANF or anything like that, I'd get a response from the Attorney General's office who, they couldn't answer my question. They didn't know, what the answer to this social safety net program question was. Phil Bryant didn't grant Mississippi Today an interview in, I think it was like a 3-year period that, and this predates me at Mississippi Today, but that he would not grant a single interview to this publication, until we got those text messages back in April regarding Prevacus and this stock agreement. He sat down with us for 3 hours, and basically his answer was that he didn't read his text messages carefully enough. So where we thought we had, pretty good evidence to show how he was involved with this scheme, he was saying that, yeah, I sent those texts, but I didn't read them carefully enough to appreciate what I was responding to. So listeners can, take what they will from that.
Yeah, and I'm curious when the last couple of years are consumed by some of this stuff, because I imagine you're a bit of a freedom fighter. Even as you're being objective, you're trying just to do the right thing. I won't call it activism, but you're seeking the truth. How often are you coming home and telling your friends or anybody, you're not going to believe what happened today? You're not going to believe how shitty these people are today?
Oh, yeah. I think my friends are completely sick of me and hearing about welfare in Mississippi. But, you got to vent to somebody about, the gaslighting, like I said, is really the big thing. Back in 2019, when I was really going in hard on the agency, Phil Bryant sent a text to the welfare director, John Davis, who, as you know, is facing all of these charges. And he sent a screenshot of a tweet that I made to the director, and he said, and it was a graph that I had created that illustrated how the state was spending welfare money. And he sent the graph to the director, and he said, how is she figuring this? And then the director responded and said, she's advocating for more people to receive cash assistance, which is not what I was doing at all. And that's a really important point, that, like, I have no opinions about how welfare money should be spent. All I cared about was seeing what the outcomes were. So if we don't want to spend welfare money on direct cash assistance to people in poverty, that's fine. I mean, what else are we doing with it that's helping them escape poverty? If we were using the money not on cash welfare at all, but on evidence-based practices, workforce development, things that helped people find self-sufficiency, and then they could show me the data where they were doing that, I'd be perfectly happy with that. But that's not what they were doing. And so he shoots back a text to the welfare director saying, and this is about 2 to 3 months before the welfare director is exposed for this scandal and ousted from office. He says, Phil Bryant says, she is a raving liberal. Keep up the good work.
Okay, it's just sort of government officials stealing money the way it's happening all over America. Can you just explain on your way out, and thank you again for the time and the reporting, can you explain to people what it is to steal $5 million from this fund? Can you explain it with the expertise of 2 years knowing how poor Mississippi is and how much these people could better use this money than on a volleyball stadium for Brett Favre's daughter?
Absolutely. So the number of people that we could have served with $5 million would have filled that volleyball stadium, every seat in that stadium, 8 times. We're talking about childcare. We're talking about workforce development. We're talking about electricity bills. We're talking about, food assistance, diapers for small babies. These are the things that we could have been supporting with these funds that we were not. And the money instead went to this volleyball stadium. But I want to make the point that, while this volleyball stadium might have been illegal, the money could have been spent perfectly legally and is all across the country. $16 billion a year is spent from this fund. And it could have been spent perfectly legally and still never helped anyone, because there is a systemic issue within our social safety net programs in this country, particularly this fund, temporary assistance for needy families, that allows states to divert this money away from the people that need it, and doesn't require states at all to use the money on evidence-based practices for interrupting generational poverty.
It's deeply depressing, Anna. Like it really is. The way that you describe it is so systemically flawed as to be heartbreaking every day. I wonder if you feel like you're tilting at windmills sometimes because it's so appalling.
Absolutely. But, a lot of the people that I talk to, and it is heartbreaking, but they're so resilient. We've got great people in this state who are making it work despite everything that they have up against them. And I want to do this job justice for them.
It's noble work. I am sure it's going to be prize winning. Thank you very much for your efforts, because it really is. I don't think people understand how hard it is to do this kind of reporting locally, not just because of the obstacles with people, but because this kind of stuff needs resources, and it's hard to have a reporter working on one thing for 2 or 3 years that is about a group of people that not enough people care about.
Yeah, I'm incredibly fortunate to work for a publication that prioritizes this kind of work. And, it's MississippiToday.org. Anyone can check it out. We are a nonprofit, and so we operate based on grants and donations.
Thank you, Anna. Excellent work.
Thank you so much.